Young and the Restless weekly spoilers March 10th to 14th. Jack confesses and Chance gets kidnapped clue. Monday, March 10th on the Young and the Restless Audra Charles, Zuleika Silver, sits down, talks to Nate Hastings, Sean Dominic. She tells him that Holden Novak, Nathan Owens, wants to be her friend. She doesn't want to keep secrets, she doesn't want to hide anything. Clearly, she's falling for Nate, which is something Audra never planned to do. She's willing to cut Holden out of her life. But she reminds Nate that Holden is the only source of information that they have on Damian Kane, Jermaine Rivers. She thinks he's willing to spill some tea, because Audra says that Holden resents Damian because they were friends. Then he went to work for him, and the way he talked to them the other day, like get on the plane, get back to work, mind your business, that kind of thing. She said that Holden already told her that Damian has this temper. Nate tells her that he trusts her, and he agrees that they need to keep that pipeline of information open. So when Holden texts asking her about being his friend, then Nate uses her phone and he texts back as Audra. Yes, they can be friends. Audra and Nate are really hoping that the cancer doctor has good news for Amy Lewis, Valerie Pettiford. And that Damian is going to stay in town for his mom. That's their hope. Kidnapping drama. Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman's fight for survival. Over in Kidnapping Central, Phyllis Summers is working out. You're in a psychiatric hospital after being kidnapped and thinking, hey, I'm going to do some Pilates. Phyllis is trying to stay strong so they can fight off this mystery person. She and Sharon Newman are bickering as usual. Sharon is busy trying to solve the riddle. Phyllis tells her she already solved it, but then she doesn't want to tell Sharon the answer in case they were supposed to be competing against each other. On the Young and the Restless, Phyllis finally relents and tells her that the thing that means everything and costs nothing is forgiveness, and that could be several things, love. Phyllis then doubles over in pain, and they think she's been poisoned, and the captor says Phyllis wasn't playing the game. Sharon begs their mystery tormentor for help, and after being given some clues, she finds a bottle of water with the antidote to save Phyllis. YandR spoilers. Nick and Billy Abbott's reluctant alliance to find missing women. Meanwhile, YandR spoilers show that Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, and Billy Abbott are discussing Phyllis being missing in action. They've both exhausted any contacts they can call trying to find her, and they realize something is really wrong with both Sharon and Phyllis going on. This can't be a coincidence, and they agree to work together to find Phyllis and Sharon, but this is a very reluctant alliance. These guys are not fans of each other. It's not as bad as Adam Newman, Mark Grossman, and Billy, not that toxic, but it's not great. Summer's schemes and Holden's Genoa City adventures on Young and the Restless. On Tuesday's Young and the Restless we have Summer Newman, Allison Lanier, causing a rift between Kyle Abbott, Michael Mueller, and Claire Grace Newman, Haley Aaron. Summer is starting some drama to try and break them up because Kyle and Claire are supposed to be having date night at the GCAC. But Summer overheard Kyle last week making the plans with Claire, and since we're going to see Claire sitting all alone at the bar having a drink, clearly that means Summer has inserted herself in there. And Summer is trying to upset Claire by running Kyle late. I'm sure Summer will let her know that he was late because he was with her. Hopefully, Kyle will get out in front of it and realize what's happening and reassure Claire, but we'll see. Another interesting spoiler is that Holden broadens his horizons in Genoa City. Next, we're going to talk about what that means and the next big move that Damian's sketchy employee makes on YandR. Claire and Holden may heat things up. Claire is sitting at the bar at the GCAC. She's looking gorgeous, red dress, hair all done nice, and she's trying out a martini. So, Holden approaches her and starts making some small talk. Maybe he is looking for somebody because he doesn't think he has a chance with Audra, or maybe he just hits on all women. I think it'd be pretty interesting, honestly, if Kyle shows up late for the date because of Summer and sees Claire chatting up that really hot guy, because we have to all agree, right? Holden is super hot. Meanwhile, Phyllis's captor forces her into a very tough decision. And of course he wants her to play the game, punish her for not, and we'll see. She said she'd never forgive Sharon, so maybe they are trying to push her to test that theory. Phyllis and Sharon's fight for control, and Tracy's surprising news. Wednesday, March 12th, Season 52, Episode 109. Phyllis and Sharon decide to take control. I don't know if they're going to play the game hard, or if they're just both going to refuse to play the game, and Chance is there to comfort Summer. No doubt about Phyllis, and I wonder if he has any inkling that Summer just told Nick that she can't be with Chance because she's still too upset about the investigation and him, pursuing Daniel Romalotti, Michael Graziadei, without looking into other possible suspects. Tracy Abbott, Beth Maitland, shares some surprising news with Jack, and we have a scene next week with Jack and Diane Jenkins, Susan Walters, and Jack's sister Tracy. They're all sitting together and Tracy's talking about how happy she is with Alan Laurent, Christopher Cousins. And he lets her know that he would like to propose and he would if he thought that she would say yes, that he would marry her right now. She's completely shocked. So I wonder if Tracy's surprising news is, yeah, we're doing this thing. Spoilers for Young and the Restless, Victor's doubts, Adam's reunion, and a shocking confession. Thursday, March 13th, episode 110 of the current season. Victor Newman, Eric Braden, is questioning Adam's decision-making. Obviously, he does that all the time, but I wonder if it's about the Abbotts and he's refusing to, spin bad press about Jack at Newman Media, which he already told him he didn't want to do. Coming up on The Young and the Restless, Adam is reuniting with Chelsea Lawson Newman, Melissa Claire Egan, which is what Victor wanted him to do. So I feel like this is more professional than a personal-related spoiler. Phyllis and Sharon fall into a trap that their kidnapper has set, and Jack is making a confession to Diane. Now the best confession would be that he's the one that put Phyllis and Sharon in that room. I doubt it though, but wouldn't that be a twist? I still am wondering if this person is entirely wicked, or just trying to get Phyllis and Sharon to bury the hatchet between them that is driving everybody in town crazy. Survival, secrets, and a potential cremation cover-up. Friday, March 14th, we're going to wrap up the week with Sharon and Phyllis fighting for their survival. So that sounds like maybe this kidnapper doesn't have a benevolent agenda, and maybe it is really someone who wants to punish them, and chance comes to Billy and Nick with a lead. And I wonder if he went to check out Ian Ward's, Ray Wise, cremation story since they had mentioned Ian's dead, and it's like,
Genoa
do
City
we know
is
that
about
for
to
sure?
erupt.
This week on The Young and the Restless, secrets refuse to stay buried as Jack Abbott's long-guarded confession sends shockwaves through the Abbott family, while Chance Chancellor stumbles onto a chilling clue that could crack open a dangerous kidnapping mystery. And if you think these two storylines won't collide, think again. Because in Genoa City, everything is connected. Jack Abbott's breaking point. For weeks, Jack has been carrying something heavy. Heavier than his rivalry with Victor, heavier than his fears about Kyle, and heavier than his constant attempts to hold the Abbott legacy together. And this week, he finally cracks. The confession doesn't happen in a boardroom. It doesn't happen in a shouting match. It happens quietly, in the living room of the Abbott mansion, where generations of secrets have been whispered. Jack admits that he made a decision months ago, a calculated one, that set off a chain reaction he can no longer control. What did he do? Sources suggest Jack interfered behind the scenes in a business deal that directly impacted someone close to him. He believed he was protecting his family. Instead, he may have placed them in danger. The most shocking part? He didn't act alone. Diane caught in the fallout. When Jack confesses, Diane is blindsided. She believed they were rebuilding on honesty. But now she learns Jack withheld the truth, not just about business, but about a conversation he had that night. Something went wrong. Diane doesn't scream. She doesn't storm out. She asks one question. Who else knows? And Jack hesitates. That pause says everything. Because if someone else knows, then someone else could be using it. Chance Chancellor smells something off. While the Abbott drama unfolds, Chance Chancellor has been obsessing over a kidnapping case that has gone cold, at least on the surface. Something about it never sat right. The timeline, the missing surveillance footage, the strange financial transfers. Then this week he finds it, a tiny detail overlooked in the original investigation. A warehouse security log shows a vehicle entering the property 2 hours before the victim was reported missing. And the plate, registered to a shell company. A shell company recently tied to a corporate restructuring that Jack Abbott quietly facilitated. Coincidence? Chance doesn't believe in those. The kidnap clue that changes everything. The new clue isn't just a license plate. Inside the abandoned warehouse, Chance finds a discarded burner phone. The SIM card is destroyed, but not completely. Forensics recovers part of a number dialed repeatedly the night of the disappearance. The number traces back to a prepaid phone purchased in bulk by a company connected to, you guessed it, a subsidiary under Abbott Communications. Chance doesn't immediately assume Jack is involved in a crime, but he does start asking questions. And in Genoa City, questions are dangerous. Kyle feels the walls closing in. Kyle senses something is wrong before he knows why. Jack is distracted. Diane is tense. And Chance has started circling the Abbott orbit with subtle, but unmistakable intensity. Kyle confronts his father privately. Did you do something I'm going to have to clean up? Jack's silence speaks volumes. Kyle has always defended his father, especially against Victor Newman. But if Jack's confession involves endangering the family name, Kyle may not stay quiet this time. Because Kyle has changed. And he's not willing to sacrifice everything for legacy. Victor Newman watches from the shadows. No crisis in Genoa City unfolds without Victor noticing. The mustache senses weakness. Victor hears whispers that Chance has reopened a file connected to a corporate entity Jack once used in a quiet maneuver against Newman Enterprises. Victor doesn't move immediately. He waits. Because if Jack's confession becomes public, and if there's even a hint of criminal wrongdoing, Victor will strike. And this time it won't just be business. It will be personal. Is the kidnapping connected to revenge? The deeper Chance digs, the stranger the case becomes. The victim wasn't random. They had recently threatened to expose financial discrepancies tied to a merger Jack aggressively pushed through. Was the kidnapping a warning? Was it meant to silence someone? Or was it staged to frame someone? Chance begins to suspect there's a larger chess game happening. And Jack may be a piece, not the mastermind. A midnight meeting no one was supposed to see. Late one night, Chance follows a lead to a private club outside Genoa City. Inside, he spots someone unexpected meeting with a known fixer. It's not Jack. It's someone from the Abbott inner circle. The conversation is hushed. An envelope changes hands. Chance doesn't have enough to make an arrest. But he has enough to know the kidnapping case is far from over. And the Abbott family is closer to the center than anyone realized. Diane's dangerous decision. After Jack's confession, Diane faces a choice. Protect her husband, or protect herself. She quietly contacts someone from her past for advice. Someone who knows how scandals spiral. She asks about legal exposure. About corporate liability. About contingency plans. Diane may love Jack. But she will not go down for him. If things explode, she'll be ready. Jack's second confession? By the end of the week, Jack realizes the truth he shared wasn't the full story. He didn't just authorize a risky maneuver. He ignored a warning. An anonymous message had told him the deal would trigger retaliation. He moved forward anyway. Because he was desperate to outmaneuver Victor. If that retaliation turned into kidnapping, Jack may never forgive himself. Chance connects the dots. In the final moments of the week, Chance lays out the evidence on his desk. The shell company. The warehouse log. The burner phone. The financial motive. One thing links them all, timing. The kidnapping occurred exactly 48 hours after Jack's maneuver became public knowledge. That's not random. That's calculated. Chance stares at Jack's name in the file. Is Jack a suspect? A pawn? Or the next target? He makes a decision. He's going to confront Jack directly. No more subtle questions. No more shadows. Cliffhanger, a door left open. The week ends at the Abbott mansion. Jack stands alone in the study. He pours a drink, but doesn't take a sip. There's a knock at the door. Chance. Their eyes meet. No small talk. Chance steps inside and says, Jack, I need you to tell me everything. Because if you don't, someone else will. Upstairs, Diane listens from the staircase. And outside, a car idles in the dark. Someone is watching. The kidnapping mystery is far from solved. Jack's confession may have only scratched the surface. And in Genoa City, the truth doesn't just set you free. It destroys you. What to watch next week? Will Jack fully come clean or double down? Is Victor secretly orchestrating the chaos? Who is at that midnight meeting? And most importantly, who is really behind the kidnapping? One thing is certain. The Young and the Restless is delivering high-stakes drama that threatens to tear one of Genoa City's most powerful families apart. Kidnapping drama. And this time, Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman's fight for survival. There are rivalries in Genoa City that simmer, and then there are rivalries that explode. But no one, not even the powerful Newman or Abbott families, could have predicted the nightmare that would force two bitter enemies into the ultimate alliance. When Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman vanished without a trace, the town didn't just panic. It fractured. The women at the center of the storm for decades on The Young and the Restless, Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman have been locked in a battle fueled by betrayal, jealousy, and shared history. Much of it revolving around Nick Newman. Phyllis is fire, impulsive, cunning, relentless. Sharon is water, emotional, intuitive, fiercely protective. Together, they're combustible. And now they were trapped. The disappearance that shook Genoa City. It began on an ordinary afternoon. Phyllis stormed out of Crimson Lights after a heated argument. Sharon followed minutes later after receiving a cryptic text message from an unknown number. You both owe me. By evening, neither woman could be reached. Their phones went straight to voicemail. Their cars were found abandoned miles apart, staged. Nick Newman's worst nightmare was unfolding. At first, suspicion flew in every direction. Was it revenge from an old enemy? Corporate retaliation? A romantic rival pushed too far? But then came the chilling discovery. Identical envelopes delivered to the Newman and Abbott mansions. Inside each was a single photo. Phyllis and Sharon. Bound. Blindfolded. Alive. A twisted game begins. The kidnapper didn't want money. He wanted something else. Reckoning. Phyllis was the first to regain consciousness in the dim warehouse where they were being held. The air smelled of rust and gasoline. Her hands were tied, her head pounding. Across the room, she saw Sharon stirring. Of all the people to be stuck with, Phyllis muttered. Sharon blinked, confused, then furious. You did this, didn't you? Phyllis rolled her eyes despite the danger. Yes, Sharon, I orchestrated my own kidnapping for bonding time. But the sarcasm masked fear. Because this wasn't random. This was personal. Forced to confront the past. Hours passed. No food. No contact. Then a speaker crackled to life. A distorted voice filled the room. You've destroyed lives. Now you'll face what you've done. Sharon's face drained of color. Phyllis stiffened. Their pasts weren't clean. Between affairs, manipulations, lies, and betrayals, both women had left emotional wreckage behind them. But who hated them enough to kidnap them both? A screen flickered on the wall, showing live footage of Nick pacing frantically. You think he'd choose one of you? The voice taunted. Let's find out. Suddenly, the rivalry felt smaller. The stakes were life and death. Survival over pride. At first, they bickered. Old wounds reopened instantly. You always destroy everything you touch, Sharon snapped. Oh please, Phyllis fired back. You're the queen of emotional chaos. But then the ropes around Sharon's wrists began cutting into her skin. She winced, trying to free herself. Phyllis noticed. Stop pulling. You'll bleed out. Sharon glared, but listened. Minutes later, Phyllis shifted closer, using a jagged piece of broken pallet wood to slowly saw at Sharon's restraints. Why are you helping me? Sharon whispered. Phyllis didn't hesitate. Because if we're getting out of here, we do it together. For the first time in years, the venom faded. They weren't rivals. They were survivors. Outside, the search intensifies. Nick refused to sit still. Victor Newman activated every security contact he had. Michael Baldwin coordinated with law enforcement. Even Jack Abbott stepped in, putting old grudges aside. Because this wasn't about rivalry. It was about family. Clues trickled in, subtle breadcrumbs left by someone who wanted to be caught. The kidnapper wasn't hiding. He was staging a spectacle. Inside the warehouse, the truth emerges. After Sharon's hands were freed, she worked quickly on Phyllis's ropes. The speaker crackled again. You two blame each other for everything. But you never take responsibility. The screen flashed images, old scandals. Marriages destroyed. Children caught in crossfire. Tears welled in Sharon's eyes. Phyllis looked shaken. We've both made mistakes, Sharon said quietly. Phyllis swallowed hard. Yeah, we have. The door creaked open. A shadow stepped inside. And then the reveal. It wasn't a random villain. It was someone from their shared past. Someone who had lost everything because of their endless war. He didn't want ransom. He wanted them to understand the damage they'd caused. The final test. You get one choice, the kidnapper said coldly. Only one of you leaves. Silence filled the warehouse. Sharon immediately stepped forward. Take me. Let her go. Phyllis whipped her head around. Are you insane? Sharon's voice shook, but remained steady. My kids need stability. Phyllis can handle herself. Phyllis stared at her longtime enemy in disbelief. Then something shifted. No, Phyllis said firmly. You take me. Sharon's family has been through enough. For a moment, the kidnapper faltered. Because this wasn't the hatred he expected. It was sacrifice. And it cracked his revenge fantasy. Turning the tables. That hesitation was all Phyllis needed. She lunged. Sharon followed. The struggle was chaotic, adrenaline overpowering fear. The weapon clattered to the ground. Sharon kicked it out of reach while Phyllis shoved their captor into a stack of crates. Sirens wailed in the distance. Nick and the police had tracked the location. The warehouse doors burst open. And just like that, it was over. Aftermath. A changed dynamic? Back in Genoa City, the shockwaves lingered. Phyllis and Sharon weren't suddenly best friends. They weren't sharing coffee and swapping secrets. But something had shifted. At Crimson Lights days later, Sharon approached cautiously. You saved my life, she said simply. Phyllis smirked, softer than usual. Don't make it a habit. A pause. Then Sharon added, maybe we stop letting the past define every move. Phyllis considered that. No promises, she replied. But maybe we try. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was growth. What this means moving forward. On the young and the restless, nothing stays calm for long. But this kidnapping forced two iconic women to face their worst selves and their best instincts. Phyllis learned she's more than vengeance and ego. Sharon proved her strength isn't weakness. And Genoa City saw something no one thought possible. Unity between sworn enemies. Of course, this is daytime drama. The peace may not last forever. Secrets could resurface. Old jealousies could reignite. But one thing is certain. When death was on the line, Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman chose courage over rivalry. And that changes the world of the young and the restless. Alliances are often born from betrayal, desperation, and the kind of danger that forces enemies to reconsider everything they thought they knew. And this time, it's not about corporate takeovers or romantic rivalries. It's about survival. Because Genoa City is on edge. Women are vanishing. And the two men no one expected to work together, Nick Newman and Billy Abbott, are about to form the most reluctant alliance of their lives. A city gripped by fear. It starts subtly. A missed appointment. A phone that goes straight to voicemail. A car left abandoned in a parking structure downtown. At first, it feels like coincidence. But when a second woman disappears, then a third, the panic spreads like wildfire. Whispers ripple through crimson lights. Mothers walk their daughters to their cars. Security systems are upgraded overnight. Genoa City, once a place of glamorous galas and corporate warfare, suddenly feels claustrophobic. Nick Newman feels it in his gut. Billy Abbott feels it in his bones. And when the disappearances hit close to home, pride becomes irrelevant. Nick's breaking point. Nick has always seen himself as a protector. It's in his DNA, part Newman instinct, part personal code. So when a woman connected to his circle goes missing, his calm exterior cracks. This isn't business. This isn't Victor's manipulation. This is real. Nick storms into the ranch demanding answers, convinced someone powerful is pulling strings. But even Victor Newman seems blindsided. There's no corporate enemy to blame. No obvious leverage play. For once, Nick is chasing a shadow. And he hates it. But the turning point comes when Nick discovers a disturbing connection between the missing women. Each had recently attended a high-profile charity gala hosted by Abbott Communications. Which means one thing. Billy might know something. Billy's guilt spiral. Billy Abbott has been trying, really trying, to rebuild his reputation. After years of reckless decisions, emotional meltdowns, and vendettas against the Newmans, he's been focused on stability. But when he learns that multiple missing women were guests at an event he organized, the guilt is suffocating. He replays every moment of that night. Every handshake. Every conversation. Every security detail. Was someone watching? Was someone hunting? Billy knows how this looks. The Newman camp will assume incompetence at best, and suspicion at worst. So when Nick storms into Abbott Communications demanding answers, the tension is explosive. Enemies at the same table. The confrontation is everything fans expect. Heated accusations, old wounds ripped open, sharp jabs about past betrayals. Nick questions Billy's judgment. Billy reminds Nick of his family's long history of control and intimidation. But beneath the hostility is something undeniable. They both want the same thing. To find the women. Alive. And when evidence surfaces that one of the victims may have been targeted because of her connection to both Newman Enterprises and Abbott Communications, the rivalry suddenly feels small. Nick makes a blunt proposal. We work together. Just this once. Billy laughs at first. But then he sees the fear in Nick's eyes. And he nods. A dangerous pattern emerges. As they dig deeper, Nick uses Newman's security resources while Billy taps into media connections and private investigators. Their methods clash constantly. Nick is calculated and controlled, Billy is impulsive and relentless. But together, they begin uncovering a chilling pattern. Each woman had received anonymous messages days before disappearing. Cryptic, taunting, and signed with a single letter. R. The revelation sends a shockwave through Genoa City. Is this someone from their past? A disgruntled employee? An obsessed stalker with a vendetta against the city's elite? Nick immediately suspects a calculated enemy targeting powerful families. Billy wonders if the motive is more personal. And as tension rises, so does the danger. Phyllis sounds the alarm. No crisis in Genoa City goes unnoticed by Phyllis Summers. Phyllis quickly senses that Nick and Billy are hiding something. When she learns about the alliance, she's stunned and deeply uneasy. These two working together? That's not strategy. That's desperation. She's right, because what Nick and Billy discover next changes everything. Security footage from the gala reveals a shadowy figure lingering near the women before each disappearance. The same man, the same watch, the same unsettling stare. And in one blurry frame, the figure seems to glance directly into the camera, as if daring someone to catch him. Billy feels a chill. Nick feels fury. They're being watched. The personal stakes skyrocket. The real shock comes when another woman connected to their inner circle nearly becomes the next victim, but escapes after fighting back. Her description of the attacker matches the man in the footage. But her final words before collapsing into tears? He said this was just the beginning. Suddenly, this isn't about solving a mystery. It's about stopping a predator escalating in confidence. Nick doubles down, becoming more aggressive in his pursuit. Billy pushes harder, ignoring advice to step back. Their reluctant partnership starts shifting into something unexpected. Respect. Because despite their differences, they see the same thing in each other. Determination. Victor's warning. No crisis unfolds in Genoa City without Victor Newman taking notice. Victor privately warns Nick that working with Billy is a mistake. The Abbotts look out for themselves, he growls. Don't forget that. But Nick surprises him. This isn't about you. Or Jack. Or business. It's about stopping someone dangerous. Victor studies his son carefully. For once, Nick isn't reacting out of rebellion. He's leading. And Victor, reluctantly, provides additional security resources, though he makes it clear he doesn't trust Billy. Billy's moment of truth. Meanwhile, Billy confides in Jack Abbott, admitting that working with Nick feels like walking a tightrope. Jack offers unexpected support. If this saves lives, it's worth swallowing your pride. Billy realizes something crucial. This isn't about beating the Newmans. It's about being better than his worst instincts. And for the first time in years, Billy is fighting for something bigger than revenge. A trap is set. With mounting evidence, Nick and Billy devise a risky plan. They leak false information about a high-profile women's networking event, hoping to lure the suspect into revealing himself. Security is discreet but tight. Nick stations trusted personnel throughout the venue. Billy monitors entrances and communications. The tension is unbearable. Hours pass. Then movement. The same watch. The same cold stare. Nick signals. Billy moves. But the suspect vanishes into the crowd before they can close in. Except this time, he leaves something behind. A message. You're getting warmer. Signed again. R. The shocking identity tease. As the episode ends, Nick and Billy examine new forensic data tied to the letter R. The name that surfaces? A former employee dismissed years ago from a joint Newman-Abbott venture. A man who once blamed both families for ruining his life. The implications are chilling. This isn't random. It's revenge. And the next move could be deadly. An alliance that changes everything. The reluctant partnership between Nick and Billy is no longer just strategic. It's personal. They've seen each other at their worst. They've fought, schemed, and sabotaged. But now, they're united by a shared mission.